Hello Animorphs fans, and welcome back to the Animorphs universe. Today we're doing another best of, worst of. We're now on best of, because we do best, worst, best, worst, best, worst, best, worst. And I span the wheel, and it's Erek. Erek King, the Chi. What are his 5 best moments? Now this was incredibly difficult, because Erek is a knob, to put it bluntly. And he doesn't have many great moments. In all seriousness, it is actually hard to find moments, because most of what he does is tell the Animorphs about something the Yerks are doing, and then the Animorphs proceed to fall into Visser 3's hands. Sometimes even when it seems illogical for that to happen, almost as if Erek is doing it on purpose. 21/20, because that's when he told them. It's a trilogy. Go read the trilogy. And tell me it's not suspicious what he's done, the little stain. But alas, the wheel told me that I have to do this video. I've got to do a top 5 Erek King best of moments. And it was difficult. I don't even have any honorary mentions. I've managed to get a top 5. I did have an honorary mention, but then I remembered, hold on, it's not specifically Erek doing that, it is the Chi in general. So that doesn't count. We're only doing Erek, not the other Chi. So, I can't wait to get to an Erek's worst moments video, because that would be, I'll have loads, I'll have freaking piles of examples. But, right, starting with 5, before I ramble on too much, okay? 5. Medi. 5. Tricking the Yerks in book 53. Now, this one's a little bit of a cheat, but I had to, and it's number 5 for a reason. So let's cover why it's here, why it's a good thing that he did. He went with the Animorphs to the pool ship and hologrammed a beaten down Cassie, you know, being dragged in front of Tom and Visser 3. And he hologrammed Cassie being eaten by this Taxxon, which was Tom's plan. He thought it was the real Cassie though, and that he'd have killed the Animorphs. Visser 3 was happy, satisfied, and allowed Tom to go to the Blade ship. This basically put the whole of the Animorphs plan in action, because they were then able to sneak onto the pull ship and carry out their deeds. So yes, Erek was instrumental in doing this, because he hologrammed the Taxxon eating Cassie. It was a really gory scene. Pulled her head off, you know, blood spraying everywhere. Fake ladies fainting in the background. It was a horrific scene. But very well played by Erek. He jumps out the way. And Visser 3 and Tom are completely and utterly fooled. Why then is this only at number 5? This is basically the start of the end. This is what eventually would save the whole of the human race and Earth and all the allies. Why is it only 5th? Because Erek didn't have a choice. He was forced into this position because Jake is a manipulative son of a gun, and he basically put him in a catch-22 and said, right, if you don't do as I tell you, I'm going to kill Chapman. That's what happens. So Erek is like, fine, I'll do it. So he did it reluctantly, and then later on down the line he drained the power of the pull ship, which caused a problem itself. So yeah, as much as it was a good thing, he was reluctant in doing it. So that's why it's number 5. It's like if some chap is in a room and there's a big button in front of him, and the button is save Granny Edna, who's standing in a pod about to be flushed out into space. I don't know why she's on a freaking spaceship. I suppose it's sci-fi. And there's a button there that lets her back into the ship, and she goes back to her knitting and bingo. And he's hovering over this button thinking, actually no, I don't really want to do this. Then someone else comes up to you and says, right, I'll shoot you in the head if you don't press that button. And so he says, fine, I don't want to do it. Bang, back to your knitting, Gran. Yeah, you did a good thing, but he was sort of forced into it. It doesn't reflect, in context, it doesn't reflect well on the chap. So that's why it's number 5. Anyway, moving on. Number 4. Reattaching Rachel. Yes, we go back to book 32. And this is bizarre, because it's a power we didn't know that Erek had. So Rachel has been split into nice Rachel and mean Rachel. And they're two separate beings. And by the end they say, okay, we agree to be put back together. Boo hiss. And how they do it is bizarre, because they just sort of stand holding each other. And then Erek basically electrocutes them until they forge back together. I mean, yeah, book 32 was weird and not very good, and that whole section needed better explanation. Because, yeah, firstly, he's harming them because it hurt them, which is against his programming, apparently not now. But he says, Kamehameha, and he energy blasts them till they merge into each other, and Rachel is back. This is number 4, because if it weren't for Erek's involvement and his energy beams, then we would have still been stuck with nice and mean Rachel, who, let's be honest, were completely and utterly useless to a large degree. That's a redundancy. No, it's not a redundancy, it's a contradiction. Completely and largely. Those don't match. Much like the Rachels. So it is topical. But yeah, Erek, without your help, we wouldn't have had Rachel, and she was vital in things going forward, of course, because she's one of the Animorphs, so cheers, mate. You broke your programming. Bit of a plot hole, but well done, mate. There's your number 4. 3! Now we get into the stuff that actually is, like, genuinely good. Book 27, The Exposed, where Erek zooms down to the Pemelite ship, miles and miles underwater. Usain bolts it from his house, where the Animorphs dropped him off at the start. He's in a paralysed state. The Animorphs press the button to reset the Pemelite beam that gets the chi functioning. And he's immediately up and he zooms out like he's had his Weetabix. And he gets right down there to the dome ship and sorts out all the Yerks and saves the Animorphs. The ship packs the Yerks and sends them on their way back to the surface, and Erek's there saying, praise me, because I just saved you all. And he did. Fair play to him. Sort of scuppered the droid's plans, but whether that was his plan all along, we don't really know. That's going to be a fun analysis when I get to... I'm looking forward to the droid analysis. That is going to be a corkingly good one. But yeah, well done, Erek. He didn't hang around like sometimes he seems to do. He just wham, straight in there, saved the day, Godspeed. So, well done. Number 2, a moment of worthwhile self-sacrifice from the book immediately preceding the previous. No, the previous. Number 3. The one we got number 3 from, book 27, we're talking about book 26 now. So it precedes the book from which we took the last... Shut up, Adam. Yeah, from book 26, when Erek holds back the Howlers, he gets into the doorway. He gets into the doorway and gives it this, you know. You ain't getting through, you Howler pricks. Right? And he buys the Animorphs time to go and do whatever they need to do, which is run away. Yeah, I mean, that's an example of doing something noble, self-sacrificial. You're doing your bit. Standing in the doorway, taking all the fire. I'm pretty sure, unless this was in a dream of mine, I'm pretty sure this is how it happened. The Howlers are trying to get into this place, you know, these indestructible things. The Animorphs don't know how to deal with them yet, and Erek stays his ground like that. One of the best stories I've heard recently. It was during the Battle of Stamford Bridge, I believe. I think it was the Battle of Stamford Bridge or something up there, where King Harold Godwinson brought his Anglo-Saxon army up to the north to fight the Vikings who had come down. You've got King William, who would eventually be William the Conqueror. He's coming up from the south through the English Channel, but they've been delayed. So Harold Godwinson is waiting on the south of England for this massive fleet of Frenchies to arrive, and they don't, and then they hear the Vikings are invading in the north. So they got all their men and said, right, up we go, and they marched all the way up to the north. And there they met the Vikings. Can you imagine that? But this is back in 1066. You know, it's before they had the Ford Escort. They were trudging up, probably in the wet weather, because it is Britain after all. And then they come up to these Vikings, and they get to a bridge, and there's a single Viking standing on this bridge, and he holds back the entire Anglo-Saxon army for a while. He's not still there fighting to this day, but he held them all back on his own on this little bridge. They eventually beat him because some of them had the bright idea to go underneath the bridge and start whacking upwards with their spears. And, you know, he eventually got beaten. But can you imagine this one Viking? Imagine being go back in time, get the time matrix, and go back there and witness that Viking. That's Erek on the bridge. This should have been number 1, really. But anyway, whatever. Yeah, that's him. Of course, then, if you continue that story, Harold Godwinson actually beat the Vikings. But then immediately had to trudge back down to the south coast, to the Battle of Hastings, where eventually the Anglo-Saxons lost and we all became French bastards. I'm sorry, my ancestry is Norman, so I owe reparations to the Anglo-Saxons, apparently. That's how it works, isn't it? I'm going to go find an Anglo-Saxon and apologise to them. I'm going to grovel. Sorry for King William. He was a bit of a bugger, but we might not have the iPhone if he wasn't about. Spare a thought for Harold Godwinson, by the way, and his army. Every single one of those Anglo-Saxon troops, right? They marched up to the north, fought a battle against Vikings. I mean, you know, Vikings aren't exactly freaking Twitter users, are they? They're big, strong buggers with axes and horns on their helmets. They fought them, beat them, and then immediately ran back down to the south coast. And we're talking, they probably were running because then William is invading from the south and they lost that battle. So, you know, they'd probably say it wasn't bloody worth it in the end. Anyway, that's number 2 and got a bit of history in there for you. Just go check out, there's a channel I watch called History Box, and it goes through all the monarchs from King Egbert all the way back in the 800s. 800s? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the 800s. It's an incredible story, and you get so much inspiration from listening to all these stories of what goes on. It's like Game of Thrones on steroids, old England. You Americans won't know because you basically have no history, let's be honest. Anyway, before I get myself into too much trouble, let's go for number 1. Number 1, it comes from Erek's first book, and it is Saving the Animorphs in Book 10. At the end, when they're at the Matcom building, and it is his first real action and his best. The Animorphs are on their, quite literally on their knees and bellies and faces at this point, losing this fight against a whole load of Hork-Bajir and controllers with guns. They're all in there. Marco's been ripped to shreds as gorilla. He's on the verge of death. And he manages to get this Pemlite crystal through to Erek. And Erek says, right, got it. Got the baton, and now he's going to do the running. And he goes there, and we don't see it. We just hear of it. It's implied that he goes, what's a suitable analogy? He goes Super Saiyan. Oh, that's a bit weak, isn't it? Super Saiyan? Come on, that's a bit predictable. Let's think of something better than that, Adam. Sorry, I can't think of anything, so we'll go with Postman Pat. He goes Postman Pat on these suckers and just delivers them their mail in the form of murder. And just kills all of them in like a split second, drags the Animorphs out and revives them. Saves the Animorphs from the point they're at the brink of death. And all reluctantly, basically, because he's never done violence before. Arguably, he does violence since Book 32. And, a great personal expense. He's lived for millennia, and he's going to live for millennia with these memories in his head, and all to save the Animorphs. So that is his number 1, and I think a well-deserved one. For all the stick I give you, Erek, you know, you did have a couple of good moments, and we've listed them now. Quite frankly, it is a short list. There was no short list. It was just, right, can I think of 5? There we go. Immediately just put them in the video. I was looking through the books and just saying, there's nothing here. But yeah, there are 5 good moments for Erek. Some better than others, of course, and some actually rather reluctantly. But there we go. Next time we're going to be doing a 5 worst moments of character X. We'll find out who X is when I next spin the wheel. And I hope you've enjoyed. Do you agree with the things I've put in this video, the order I've put them in? Do you think there's moments I've missed that Erek did good in? But please do tell me if you can think of any. Go watch History Box. It's a great channel if you are a fan of history. It's all very simplified, but also it still gives you that relevant information in a well-packaged way, unlike me. I'll put up my Cheespiracy theory video as well, and there was another video I was going to share with you here. Which one was it? Oh, I'll remember it in post. Right, thank you very much for watching. I shall see you somewhere else in the Animorphs universe. Cheerio!